Wow. Hey, much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. How you guys doing? Thanks for tuning in once again. Today, we're just going to continue reading this book we've been reading. Great book. Just to finish it off, a lot of good information. A lot of you guys are enjoying it. So I'm going to just continue reading from it. So just a quick reminder, guys, if you're new to my channel, this is the first time watching a video of this series, researches into the lost histories of America. Make sure to catch all the playlists so you can be up to date and understand what we're going to be reading today. Have a background. Again, we're on part 10 today. All right, so there's 9 other parts before this. You can go to my playlist tab and you can search for my playlist called Researches into the Lost History of America, and you're going to find all the videos. All right, a lot of great information we've gone over. Again, this book is Researches into the Lost Histories of America, or the zodiac shown to be an old terrestrial map in which the Atlantic isle is delineated, so that light can be thrown upon the obscure histories of the earthworks and ruined cities of America, by W.S. Blackett. This is from 1884. And we are heading over to page 219. We are in chapter 21. Yep, we've read every chapter. We're going to continue where we left off. And it says here, Central America, number 4. The basos relievos, sculpture, and gravestones found in the ruined cities of Central America, compared with the mythological monuments and the signs of the old continent, so-called old continent. Remember, this author and all these authors from all these times are always seeing it in reverse. They're calling that side of the world the old continent when this is the true old world, and not just because of civilization, but actual physically, geologically, it's the oldest land coming out of the waters, confirmed by the most famous geologist, Louis Agassiz. The great hierarchies of idolatry, which have constituted the religions of the ancient world, have left traces of their nature and practices in the images, temples, and pictures handed down to posterity. The history and ethnology of mankind lie hidden in the pictures of the gods. When a people has been compelled to change its place of abode or to migrate into transmarine lands, its primary care has been to carry with it the images of its gods. It results from such a custom that there are scattered over the whole globe the same images with but slight variations. Where there are confraternities of nations, there must be a resemblance of divinities. The basos relievos and sculpture discovered in the ruined cities of Central America are an illustration of these remarks. Although they are silent themselves, any expert in European mythology and pictures can readily detect a great many of them. The basos relievos and sculptures of antiquity are not to be regarded as one would inspect a picture gallery of modern art. Before the discovery of letters, the ancients had no effectual mode of hanging or handing down their histories, or of preserving the memory of their kings, heroes, and gods, but by sculptures, engravings on the wall. Mythological monuments must be taken as a sort of writing. They are pictorial writing. An extended acquaintance with ancient figures will convince anyone that they faithfully represent the personal appearance of former generations, even in costume, heraldic devices, and tribal signs. On this account, it is not impossible to form a credible estimate of the images of Central America. The first figure to be introduced is one that was found in the ruins of Copan. In the work of Mr. Stevens, a large number of similar stones are exhibited. They were hidden and covered with vegetation, but the artist succeeded in copying them. They all have the figure of a human being, graven on the face of the stone, surrounded by numerous heads and minute carvings. It appears that originally they were colored red. all right? And here they have an image. It says here of stone at Copan and Pusa. That must be over there in Hindustan, and that part of the world over there. And as you guys can see, they're probably comparing it. It says here there can be no mistake made in putting these figures into their proper category. They are evidently what may be called Chinese Pusas or Japanese Kwanwans. So I was wrong, not Hindustan. They're talking about, again, Chinese Pusas or Japanese Kwanwans. Have you guys ever heard of that? And that's what they're comparing with what they found in Copan. All right, again, this is the true old world. They went from here over there. One of these Asiatic idols is here given for comparison. Pusa, in the Chinese hierarchy, is the mother of the gods with varied forms of representation. The present form has a precise resemblance to the Japanese Kwanwan, but the latter is surrounded with what is called a seething pot crown, which is decorated with images of small angels. Let's go back. Okay, see? This is what they're talking about. So this is the Pusa, and this is the stone in Copan in the Americas. Okay? The Chinese Pusa has a tradition connected with it, which is as follows. 10 ages since 3 nymphs came from heaven to bathe. Their names were Angela, Changela, and Phaikula. Phaikula swallowed a lotus and had a son. The other 2 went back to heaven, but Phaikula's son was brought up by the fishermen, or a fisherman, and afterwards ruled all the nations of the great state. On comparison, it must be acknowledged that the Copan image bears a great resemblance to the Chinese and Japanese idols. The central figure is not only very similar, but the hands are held up in a like attitude, while the faces and headdresses are alike. All right, let's go back. You guys see what they're talking about? All right, we go back. The numerous arms, heads, and objects in the Asiatic figure have their counterpart in the numerous heads and irregular carvings of the Copan image. It is not quite safe to determine which of these 2 figures is the type and which is the antitype. All right, meaning which is the original, which is the duplicate. Again, America's a true old world, guys. Who are the ancient Nagas? They came from here. Which the original and which the copy, right? Like I just said. But judged in the light of the Chinese tradition, the Copan figure ought to be the original. All right, body bag for the illusion. Who's the original? The one in Copan. Who's the original? The one in Copan. So why is the same author in certain chapters saying, oh, they must have came from Asia, then they made the old world here, then they went back? You know, it makes no sense. He's telling you which is more original. All 3 females come from heaven in the first instance. To determine a point so difficult, the myth of Ceres, given in a former chapter, ought to be adduced in illustration. In that myth, Ceres appears to descend first to the underground world, but she returns back again and has a residence 6 months in one hemisphere and 6 months in the other. That sounds like a solar thing here going on. But I also want to remind you, in my corn videos, we determined that Ceres was a corn deity. Yeah, she was a corn deity. Look it up. In the light of classical European mythology, the Copan figures must be treated as hecatonkati. There are 3 hecatonkati: Cotus, Briareus, and Gyges. There is no myth of Cotus. That of Briareus is as follows. Briareus, a famous giant, son of Coelus and Terra. He had 100 hands and 50 heads, and was called by men Aegeon. When Juno, Neptune, and Minerva conspired to dethrone Jupiter, Briareus ascended heaven and sat himself down next to him. Or he sat next to him, and so terrified the conspirators by his fierce and threatening looks that they desisted. He assisted the giants in their war against the gods and was thrown under Mount Aetna, according to some accounts. The myth of Gyges or Gyges is as follows. Gyges, a son of Coelus and Terra, represented as having 100 hands. He, with his brothers, made war against the gods and was afterwards punished in Tartary. Punished in Tartary. These myths must be located in the ordinary way employed in this work. This cannot be done by a zodiacal sign. The parentage of the Hecatoncheiri does not locate them with any precision. Briareus is called by men Aegean, another spelling for ocean. And remember, he broke that anything dealing with Aegean or Oceanus was dealing with America, ancient America. But what is said of them ties them to the vicinity of the Gulf of Texas. Listen, all right, see how this all correlates with what we've been reading about how they made a lot of real people into mythology, especially the Greek gods, Roman gods, and all those other gods. We're talking about a lot of Israelite patriarchs as well, turning them into deities or idols, mythic characters. But it also symbolizes geographical places, as they're telling you here. These stories they're telling. They engage in the wars of the gods and giants. The great stones of Copan may fairly be considered to put them in the ruined cities of Central America. There they must have remained till the general dispersion. All right, till that dispersion. This is taught in the myths. They are driven to the east and west. Gyges is punished in Tartary, and Briareus is thrown under Mount Aetna in Sicily. All right, so we got another image here. Let me just back up real quick, get a full close-up of this. So it's native figure, European Sylvan. You guys see? And he is holding on this arm right here on the left what looks to be just like what he's holding right here. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's corn right there. Look at that. That looks just like corn, guys. Depicted in the European Sylvan, right? All right, you guys see? We're going to continue. Let me go ahead and zoom in again. Among the native pictures relating to Central America is one that may be pronounced Sylvain. It not only exhibits a characteristic specimen of the Sylvan deity, but it carries the pine, and the curious headdresses are alike. The following is his myth. So he's saying pine. Remember, they try to make corn into pine because corn ain't supposed to be over there in the ancient world. Remember, supposedly Columbus and his people after him brought corn to Europe. But that's a lie. We've debunked that. A lot of those depictions, what they call an acorn or the pineal gland, is literally corn, guys. Literally different types of ancient corn that look just like the pine. Just like the pine. Silvanus, a rural deity, son of an Italian shepherd by a goat. According to Virgil, he was the son of Picus, or as others report, of Mars, or according to Plutarch, of Valeria, Tusculania. The worship of Silvanus was established only in Italy, whereas some authors have imagined he reigned in the age of Evander. This deity was sometimes represented holding a cypress in his hand because he became enamored of a beautiful youth called Cyparissus, who was changed into a tree of the same name. Silvanus presided over gardens and limits, and he is often confounded with the Faunes, Satyrs, and Sylvains. All right, so I just want to remind, corn was the main plant that helped people, become civilized, settle down, have time, and it grew so much, right? So again, if this Silvanus presided over gardens, he must have run into corn gardens. This is one of many instances which show how completely the Romans of Virgil's time had forgotten the history of their own divinities, while at the same time their literature contained in it their true origin. In this myth, Silvanus is the son of a goat and is confounded with the Faunis and Satyrs and Sylvains, all personages represented by the Romans as half man, half goat. When a capital specimen of this deity is found among the ruins of Central America, one sees at once that Tabasco and, and the vicinity is the original domicile of Sylvain. Listen, he's letting you know that's where he was from, not from Europe. And he was a real person. It's like these are real things, real people, real historical events. These stories, these mythological stories are just kind of describing that in metaphor. But this is his domicile right here. He said near Tabasco, near Texas. For the country suits him to perfection. Tabasco is the garden of the world. And it has been seen that Pan, in his European form, as half man, half goat, was the native deity of the country, all right? This was here. There was a Pan-like deity here in this region of the world. We got that in previous chapters. In some mythological collections, there is a picture of a pavement found at Lyons, where Silvanus, Pan, and Cupid are found in company. All these characters belong to Central America, all right? All these characters belong to Central America, so that it is not at all surprising that the god Silvanus is found among the native designs of the land. At the same time, it is a strong confirmation of the present system of the discovery of obscure histories by tracking the pedigrees of the gods upon the basis of a map. All right? It is at Palenque that the best specimens of basalt relievos and images are found. Remember, we just did a video the other day of an exploration done in the 1800s of Palenque, what they were finding, this old world culture. Look how it's matching with this. Palenque appears to have been a very important town in Central America, as may be inferred from the extent of the ruins. It is situated in a recess of the mountains and near a river, which connects the place with the Gulf of Mexico, and so gives access to the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. It is in the province of Tetzendales, between Tabasco and Yucatan. The native Indians are Caribs, all right? These are Carib-type people on the coast here. The figures of the basalt relievos have Indian features, but Mr. Stevens thinks that the heads were flattened by boards. This flat-headed Indian race does not now exist in the neighborhood, but Mr. Stevens met an Indian with the exact kind of face seen in the tablets. These figures are in a style very different from those at Copan and much more diversified, exhibiting marks of greater antiquity. The hieroglyphics are the same as those seen at Copan. All right, and again, let me back up real quick so we can get the full image. So we got a sculpture at Palenque here, right? And then we got Diana of Ephesus. You guys see? So man again says the only complete sculpture found at Palenque is one that is here given. By comparison with the European mythological image that stands at its side, it can readily be detected as a Diana of the Ephesians. This is proved by its general resemblance to that remarkable idol, by the extraordinary and unusual headdress they both carry, and especially by the mural crown, which is a symbolic object too peculiar to be mistaken. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it again. You guys see? You do see like a little tower here, right? And you see Diana is a triple goddess. She has three different forms. The first is that in which she here appears. The second is that of Hecate or Hecate, the underground Diana, who again is a threefold image holding the infernal key. The third is that of a huntress. These three forms exhibit her race, whatever it was, as having three different domiciles. Towards the explication of the present figure, It would be useless to transcribe the entire myth of Diana. It would be misleading. She is said to represent the moon and to be the same as Isis, all right? Phantoms and duplicates. If she be the same as Isis, she coalesces with Pusa, the goddess of China, who has been already identified with the figures of Copan and whose legend has been transcribed. Diana of Ephesus stands out prominently as the progenitor of the human race by her mammal attributes. When she is found in Central America, she must be considered as the goddess of races that came originally from Asia. You see what I was saying earlier, how he tries to still say, even though he's saying this is more original, he's got to make it make sense. But that's the hijack. Again, all these authors are still with the idea that America was uninhabited, that it's a new continent. We know the hijacks. So that's hijack. All right, big time. It kind of disappoints me when I read this because he has so much good info. He's letting us know America's the truer world, but still he's saying that these people, before they created the old world here, must have came from Asia. What Asia? America and Asia were connected more back in the day. The farthest east is America. This is India Superior or Asia Major, because there is an Asia Minor, right? So where's Asia Major? Where's Major Asia? That's here, guys. So from the great country of Isis and the Isidonis, from the vast and ancient empires which have retained to the present day the being, characteristics, and religion of a world too ancient for research. See, he's making it up. He doesn't know. He doesn't even know if they came from there. In short, from the stem mother of the white races, you see? There we go. And all these people, even in modern times, these Atlantis writers, they always want to make all these advanced civilized people into so-called white races. That's the hijack with the crayon color classification. It was a melanated world in general. Different shades of that. All this white supremacy and these writings, unfortunately, always comes out. But we have the discernment, right? We know how to dodge the hijacks. The Palenque image now before the reader must have been the earliest type of Diana of the Ephesians. So this is what I'm saying. This is the earliest type of Diana, but you're still trying to put them in so-called Asia on the other side. But this is Asia Major. So we can agree on that. This is proved by the simplicity of the sculpture and by the absence of numerous emblems always drawn on the Ephesian goddess. In this simple form, it can be traced across the Atlantic Ocean into Western Europe. The German Hertha is the same figure. Perhaps it may be a question whether the German Hertha cannot claim primogeniture for the idol. It may have been carried into the Atlantic Isle. If otherwise, it must have been carried from Central America into Germany. Again, from Central America into Germany, not the other way around. But the Palenque image must have gone round the world. It must have gone round the world. Yes, it did. It must have been carried into Africa. Oh, yeah, yes, it did. Into Africa, not out of Africa, right? At Ephesus, the image was black. Okay? It was what? Black, or at least the tint of ebony, but you still were calling them so-called white. You see how he just contradicted himself, right? And it was covered with somorphic attributes. Wild beasts hang about it. Ephesus was built by the Amazons, who worshiped Diana of the Ephesians as the mother of the gods, all right? By who? By the Amazons, right? Don't we have a whole videos about this? Who were the Amazons? Where were they really coming from? From ancient America, guys. Yeah, they went over there to so-called Asia, what they call Asia today. And believe it or not, they were hooking up with the Scythians. We got the readings right before. And that's who they were having kids with, supposedly. We've read this before, right? Who were the Scythians or the Sakai, sons of Isaac? So the Amazons so-called worship Diana as the mother of the gods. Diodorus Siculus puts the Amazons in Africa before they settled in Asia Minor, so that the image must have traveled, picking up fresh attributes and changing its color. till at Ephesus, the city of the Amazons, it became a compound figure, crowded with indications of a worldwide history. All right. And we've broken this down about the Amazons again. They did not originate in Africa. And the word, this is the funny thing, the word Africa really didn't exist supposedly in Diodorus' time. So what do they mean by this? And that's a Roman Latin word. Africa was a colony of the Romans in Tunisia first, a small town or city before it became the whole name of the continent. Under these circumstances, it is interesting to turn to Acts 19:35 to see what the town clerk of Ephesus said on the occasion of the tumult created by the preaching of the Apostle Paul. Ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how that city of the Ephesians is a worshipper of the great goddess Diana, and of the image which fell down from Jupiter? In the Greek, this is, and there's the Greek, this can be well understood from a quotation from Parkhurst's lexicon. An image which fell down from Jupiter, being understood. Numa persuaded the Romans that a certain shield fell from heaven, to which Plutarch applies the same word, as he also does to the famous Trojan Palladium, or image of Pallas, which protected Troy, and was supposed to have fallen from heaven. And Euripides, speaking of the image of Diana Taurica, says, and the image of the goddess take which fell, they say, from heaven into this holy fane. He afterwards calls it, that's the Greek letters again, the image which fell from Jupiter. So Herodian calls the image of the mother of the gods. It may be thought by some to be straining the inferences that arise from the comparison of pictures, but it is very hard to look thoughtfully at this subject without coming to the conclusion that the image which fell from Jupiter must be this Palenque image. In the extract just given, all right, must be from Palenque. In the extract just given, the Palladium has the same history as the present image. Pallas is the husband of Styx, who is described as a nymph who dwelt at the entrance of Hades, which will presently be found to be in the Caribbean Sea. Come on now, where is the entrance of Hades, or the underworld? Where does the sun set? In the west, right? Where is Amenti? All that was referring to America, guys. He's telling you right here too. That's found in the Caribbean Sea. So again, Dardanus, who's Darda, right? Who is Darda? This is a real person. Remember, we're talking about mythology right now. But Darda was a real person, a descendant of Sarah of the line of Judah, the progenitor of Tros, who is the founder or progenitor of the Trojans. Yeah, Darda. So again, Dardanus, who founded Troy, and who must be supposed to have taken the Palladium there, locates in Central America. All right, the line of Judah. Where's it coming out from, guys? Look how this all starts correlating. I've been telling you, when they're saying these people are coming out of so-called Egypt and ending up in these places in Europe, they've been talking about the real ancient Egypt. To Mary, we're talking about the real promised land. We're talking about the real Canaan, the real old world. So this Palladium there located in Central America, he is a son of Electra, the wife or child of Atlas. And he was twice made his appearance in these histories, and both times in the palace of Electra, which has been shown to be at Utatlan, the capital of Quiche. That's where Electra's palace was. Remember, we've read this in previous chapters. Now look at this, Utatlan. You add the TIS Greek suffix, what do you get? Utatlantis, Atlantis, Atlantis, the capital of the Quiche Maya, right? It goes far to confirm the present strange theory that there are other instances of a similar kind in ancient legends, especially in regard to what are called the stones of Baal. Mr. Squires, in his work called The Serpent Emblem, says that Baal's image was a black stone fallen from heaven into the estuary of Hamath and Mesa, or the mouth of the Orontes on the coast of Syria. There is a similar legend in Ireland. All right, listen. In the Chronicle of Eri, it is said that long before the Celts left Spain, the god Baal had sent a blessed stone that like fell to their ancestors. This last tradition shows what is meant by the saying, fallen from heaven. These stones, shields, and images must have been brought into Europe and Asia from across the Atlantic Ocean, from America. In those great migrations and warlike expeditions of which Plato speaks in Timaeus, all right? He's saying when the Atlanteans came, they must have brought this. Who's the Atlanteans? Just talking about ancient America, okay? Another image found in the ruins of Palenque is that of a cross. This cross has given name to what in church architecture is called the Palenque cross. It must be taken as indicative of the presence of Asiatic monks or hermits. And this is confirmed by the nature of the buildings where the cross was found, all right? Because in America, you ain't supposed to be finding crosses, and he's relating that to Asiatic monks only. So he's like, he's guessing, it must be, he's guessing. No, these were from here, original to the America. They were monasteries, all right? In the Ptolemaic zodiac, there is a cross with a bird on it and called the cross of Antinous, all right? A cross with a bird on it. Come on now. Just like in ancient Egypt, and I've shown this comparison before. That double constellation is so similar to the present cross with a bird on it as to raise a question as to the localization of the sign. In some copies of the spears, the two objects are severed, and in the Etruscan spear, the sign is placed more westerly. Remember, Etruscans come out of so-called Atlantis. Who Antinos was is uncertain, and a question arises whether it is Ankino, the wife of Belus. On the whole, it is safest to consider the constellation as belonging to Italy, but it makes good mythology to bring the sign originally from Palenque to the Mediterranean Sea as the Maltese cross. It became the Maltese cross, but where did it come from? Palenque. Ending up over there, okay? It says here, tablet at Palenque, right? Take a good look at it. This is a very popular image. Just look at how he's seated. You've seen many Hindu depictions, Asiatic depictions, Babylonian depictions, Egyptian depictions of the same stance or deity sitting in the same way, all right? But this is original to here. I bet you that's what he's going to tell you, right? So again, take a really good look at that. I know you've seen that before, right? The next basso relievo at Palenque that calls for notice must be pronounced a Bacchus. And it is a beautiful specimen of that mythic personage. Not only is he seated upon his tub, but he has beneath him the peculiar nondescripts, which in European mythology are called panthers. Panthers or jaguars, huh? Black Panther is a jaguar, right? Jaguars have black coats as well. This tablet is remarkable as being surrounded with hieroglyphics placed precisely as they are in Egyptian portraits of gods, just like in Egypt, These hieroglyphics have baffled interpretation, but two of them are deserving of notice. One at the right hand has an oval enclosing a cuneiform letter such as are found in Assyria. How it could form a part of a Central American alphabet is left to the learned to determine. All right, this is what I'm going to show you right here. You guys see on the right, it looks like cuneiform or Assyrian script, or what they be trying to call Sumerian writing. It's actually Assyrian script, but you see, it's over here in Central America. He's like, how can we find this here? Why? We don't know why why are we finding this here? Come on, guys. He says, how could it form a part of Central American alphabet? It's left to the learned to determine. The learned. Who is the learned, guys? We are the learned now. Yeah, because America's a true old world. That's why. So the learned has spoken. We determine because this is the true old world. Another on the same side is a man blowing a pan pipe, constructed exactly like a common street pan pipe in Europe. This fact becomes significant when it is discovered in the land of Pan, where he was the native god of the country, meaning right here in the southwest, near Texas, near Tabasco, as he broke down in previous chapters. In the picture of the struggle of Cupid and Pan at page 201, a similar panpipe is observable. All right, and we got that in the previous chapter or part of this video. Go ahead and check it out, guys. Bacchus, by name, has not hitherto presented himself in this history. But when his mythology is studied, Central America is the spot where he ought to be found. Again, Central America. Come on now. A few extracts from this tradition may here be transcribed, and they will give rise to some comments. Bacchus, son of Jupiter, and Semele, the daughter of Cadmus. Cadmus coming out of Egypt, an Israelite. Remember what Diodorus said about Cadmus. He was an Israelite coming out of the Exodus. After she had enjoyed the company of Jupiter, Semele was deceived and punished by the artifice of Juno. And again, Juno, another corn deity. Bacchus is the Osiris of the Egyptians. It's the same as Osiris, phantasm duplicates. Remember, they found Osiris here in the Americas. I've shown so many different examples of that. Bacchus assisted the gods in their wars against the giants and was cut to pieces. Bacchus is represented as accompanied by Pans and Satyrs. These extracts belong to Bacchus in the present locality. The remaining part of his myth relates to later histories in the Old Hemisphere. Bacchus at Palenque isn't the exact place for what is called his birth, inasmuch as some myths which were transcribed at the end of the 16th chapter made Hermione to have been brought out in the palace of Electra, which has since been discovered at Quiche. Okay? The palace of Electra is in the Quiche capital, not far from Palenque itself. But the expression, birth of Bacchus, is one that demands consideration. What can be meant by it? And in a historical and ethnological sense, this question is best answered by shifting the Latin name of Bacchus into its Greek equivalent, Dionysus, all right? Dionysus, which is the same as Bacchus, which the Romans made the Israelites try to worship and parade in their festivities. They turned these memorable statues of ancient kings and heroes into deities or ancestor worship. They made people start worshiping these things. It is no play upon words. It is the result of the tracing of history to see in the word Dionysus, the god Nahoas. He is the race of Nahuas, or Toltecs of Mexico and Central America, deified. That's what we're talking about, guys, here. He is the mythic embodiment of the mingled races of Asiatics and natives of the Atlantic isles. So that's because he's saying Asians came and developed the old world here in the America, and then they left again to every other part of the world. So dodge the hijack. What age are you talking about? Asia Major, North America, mixing with people in Mexico? What you talking about? Whose joint history has been traced in the preceding pages. When this race leaves the oceanic hemisphere and spreads itself over Europe, Africa, and Asia, you see what I'm saying? So why would they leave Asia, then come here, start the old world, start all these great civilizations, all this architecture, all this civilization, and then again leave and go to Europe, Africa, and Asia? See, make it make sense, man. This is the original spot. This is the source. It started here. It didn't come from nowhere else. That's why it got spread all over the world from there. And again, even into Africa, not out of Africa, but into Africa. And he was deified as Bacchus or Dionysus. They made it a god. They made you start worshiping the ancestors. He is a new god, a strange and wild god, god of wine and leather, and leader of the Pans, Satyrs, and Centaurs. That is his birth. But the same explanation applies to the saying, cut into pieces. The new race branches off by separate migrations, east and west. So leaving America, he's saying, going towards the Atlantic and towards the Pacific, not just one way. The new race branches off. Sorry, I just read that. So east and west, till it is found in all the lands, till it's all over the world now. And then they forgot the origin, right? It became a myth. It is cut into pieces. At Nisa, at the sources of the Nile, he is an Ethiopian. Ha! Remember, the Greeks had the Western Ethiopians and the Eastern Ethiopians. So what is an Ethiopian? We're not talking about a citizen of Ethiopia, the country today. The etymology of Ethiop means burnt skin or like a reddish brown complexion. In Egypt, he is Osiris. This is not a fancy. The Greco-Egyptians recognized that identity. In Greece, he is Dionysus, with numerous and surprising festivals called the Dionysica. This is what I was saying. They were trying to make, when they were in captivity with the Romans, they were trying to make them worship and participate in their carnivals, parades, festivals that they had for Bacchus or Dionysica. Remember what happened to Eliezer. We read this the other day. It was the same thing. They were trying to make him participate in the festivities of Dionysus, and the Israelites parade in their carnivals and all that. In Italy, he is Bacchus. In Phoenicia, he is Adonis. In Hindustan, he is Krishna. In these facts lie what are called the mysteries of the ancients. This is the explication of those mysteries and of the fast and feast which were everywhere held to commemorate them, fast to mourn over the loss of people who in the early ages had migrated from Asia into America. Gosh, the hijack. Man, he contradicts himself so much, right? But he can't even tell you what, where in Asia, when did they arrive in ancient America and start the civilizations of the world in America and then leave again? Make it make sense, author. Across the Pacific Ocean, and feast to commemorate their return in later ages across the Atlantic, their return. So they went back, huh? So we got another tablet here. It says tablet at Palenque. Let me back up a little bit. You guys see? Again, this is found in Palenque. Another basso relievo in the ruins of Palenque courts special attention. It is very curious, of course. The interpretation here put upon these tablets is open to challenge, but to the eye of a mythologist here is Bacchus again. He is still seated on his panthers, but he is in the boat which bears him from the shores of the Atlantic Isle in the great dispersion of the Atlantides, by which he became the god of the old continent. In later ages, he became a god. Oh, From where? From America. And then they started, they made him a deity in the new continent. That over there is newer than over here, guys. In this tablet, the true and hidden character of Bacchus is betrayed. He is Neptune himself, to whom the Atlantic Isle has been originally allotted. All right, Neptune, all these gods are from here. This is seen by the circumstance that he carries on his head the European emblem of Neptune, the dolphin. This emblem is too well defined in the symbolism of the gods to be mistaken. This is the ancient Neptune of the Pacific Ocean, who in earlier ages had taken Ceres upon his back and landed her in the oceanic hemisphere. All right, so let me real quick go back. All right. Riding on the boat. Is that Ceres? Continuing, after a mystic residence in that hemisphere for untold ages, in which must have been enacted those great histories which have been faintly traced in these pages, he is, like all other gods, born again. Seated in his boat, he is seen habilitated in all the fantastic paraphernalia of his island domicile. Seated opposite to him is his lovely wife, Amphitrite, who has considerably provided for her husband and herself an ample stock of provisions for their long and perilous voyage. Her myth is as follows. Amphitrite, daughter of Oceanus and Tethys, married Neptune. Though she had made a vow of perpetual celibacy, she had by him Triton, one of the sea deities. She had a statue at Corinth in the temple of Neptune. She is sometimes called Salatia or Salatia, and is often taken for the sea itself. This myth is one of 1,000 which come in exactly at the proper time and place for the localization of mythic personages. She is a daughter of Oceanus and Tethys, so that she must have been the Atlantic wife of the sea god. She has a statue in her husband's temple at Corinth, of which city the dolphin is zodiacal portraiture. She has a son, Triton, who locates in northern Africa on the Tritonian Lake. These localizations point out the route which the boat must have taken. It must have crossed the Atlantic to the north of Africa, all right? Again, into Africa, not out of Africa, from America. Neptune there takes another wife. He marries Libya and becomes the god of Mauritania. All right, so that was the end of that chapter. And don't worry, guys, we're going on to chapter 22. We're going to continue. All right. So again, we are in the book Researches into the Lost Histories of America, or the Zodiac, shown to be an old terrestrial map in which the Atlantic Isle is delineated so that light can be thrown upon the obscure histories of the earthworks and ruined cities of America by William Stevens Blackett. This is from 1884. Again, continuing on page 232, chapter 22. The evacuation of the cities of Central America and the flight of the gods. All right, just like Dov said, we had to flee, we had to go, and his emerald tablets, right, supposedly. But either way, we know that in Egypt, all these gods were called the Westerners, and they had to flee, and they ended up in that part of the world, according to their own Book of the Dead and all that, right? So the evacuation of the cities of Central America and the flight of the gods, the so-called gods, huh? The sign of Cerberus and its mythology. Neptune is in his boat. He is about to forsake the Atlantic Isle that had been assigned to him and to seek for new territories on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea. But there is danger ahead. Mythology teaches that the entrance to the underground world was guarded by a monstrous dog. Uh-oh. The following is the classic myth of Cerberus. Cerberus, a dog of Pluto, the fruit of Echidna's union with Typhoon. He had 50 heads according to Hesiod, and 3 according to other mythologists. He was stationed at the entrance of hell as a watchful keeper to prevent the living from entering the infernal regions and the dead from escaping from their confinement. It was usual for those heroes who, in their lifetime, visited Pluto's kingdom to appease the barking mouth of Cerberus with a cake. Orpheus lulled him to sleep with his lyre, and Hercules dragged him from hell when he went to redeem Alceste. The constellation of Cerberus answers very well to the Caribbean Sea. Again, the constellation of Cerberus answers very well to the Caribbean Sea. That sea is at the entrance of the Gulf of Texas, and consequently of all America. The word Cerberus clangs both with the Caribbean Sea and with the Carib Indians, who inhabit the West India Islands. Remember who's the Carians? Carians were very much a seafaring nation, who's the so-called Carians that just showed up out of nowhere in so-called Asia. They were coming from Atlantis, remember? One of those islands, now called Santo Domingo, carries the native name of Haiti, a word that clangs as well as with Hades. Come on now. Haiti, Hades, come on now. As Cerberus does with Caribs. Come on, guys. Do you see all the correlation, right? Apply everything we've learned in the last 7 years, right? This is just more corroboration. We're not just reading one book and one guy's opinions here. It's matching all of the research we've done. This very good identification is much strengthened by the description given by Picard of the religious customs of the Carib Indians in the island of Haiti. In that book, there is a very characteristic picture of a place of worship of the Carib Indians. The temple is a sort of grotto, and there is a procession of priests and people dancing and playing on musical instruments. The grotto is guarded by a couple of demoniacal figures of a terrific aspect. The idol, as seen in the present picture, has 5 heads, and he holds a pitchfork. All right, they're talking about Shemis or Hemis, god of Hades. Look at this. Or Hades. The idol, as seen in the present picture, so close is this identification that it can scarcely be doubted that Shemis or Hemis is the idol that gives rise to the Greek and Egyptian conception of Cerberus. All right, they got it from Hades. They got that from Hades. Closely allied to Cerberus is Charon, or Charon. His myth is as follows. Charon, a god of hell, son of Erebus and Nox, he conducted the souls of the dead over the rivers Styx and Acheron to the infernal regions for an obulus. Such as had not been honored with a funeral were not permitted to enter his boat without previously wandering on the shore for 100 years. If any living person presented himself to cross the Stygian lake, he could not be admitted before he showed Charon a golden bow, which he had received from Cybele. Charon was imprisoned for 1 year because he had ferried over against his own will Hercules without this passport. Charon is represented as an old, robust man with a hideous countenance, long white beard, and piercing eyes. All right? Piercing eyes. But Charon could not have been the only boatman on the Gulf of Texas and the Mississippi. It is the Stygian birds, which in a mythic sense exhibit the boats and navigation of the Atlantic Isle. In the tracing of myths, Atlas is distinguished as the father of the Harpies, or Stygian birds, His wife or daughter, Electra, is the mother of the Harpies. This puts the domicile of the Harpies in Utatlan, the capital of the empire of Quiche. Did you guys know that was the capital of the Quiche? It was called Utatlan. Just add the TIS at the end, the Greek suffix. What do you get? Utatlantis. Utatlantis. Come on now. Quiche Maya. The Atlantides of Quiche. Again, the Atlantides of Quiche and Yucatan must therefore have been shipbuilders. Of course they were, guys. This is what I'm saying. He's just finding this out. Ancient navigation. Central America was a hotspot for shipbuilding and for learning how to navigate and going out into the world from there. It has been already shown that Dardanus, Darda of the line of Judah, the son of Electra, by Jupiter, had a fleet of 12 flying horses between Central America and Britain. All right, between Central America and the British Isles. It must now be added that Iris, his sister, who is also the daughter of Electra, must have had a fleet of flying men. In the next chapter, it will be shown that Iris is the mother of the Irish. The British Isles are in the zodiac, delineated by a harpy. It thus appears that there must have been two lines of packets between Quiche and Britain. Between Quiche and Britain, listen, a line of flying mares and a competing line of flying men. It would appear from the myths relating to the Atlantic Isle that in process of time there must have been some sudden consternation among the gods, and they all took to flight, dressed in their purple robes, royal robes, right? They say Phoenicians had these purple stuff, right? And in enjoyment of their music and perfumes, and the 10 kings were assembled. And Jupiter was about to make a speech to them when that horrible Spitfire typhoon suddenly burst in upon them, and there came on an ignominious scamper. The frightened gods seemed to have lost their divine courage. They fled away and assumed different shapes. Some of the cowards turned themselves into rams, swans, cows, goats, cats, and fishes. At length, the king of the gods plucked up a little and with his thunderbolts crushed the Spitfire on the Mount Aetna. Judging of the transformations contained in the myth in the light of poetical astronomy, the rams must have gone into the Orient, the swans must have swam to Gaul and Germany, the cows to Spain, and the goats to Egypt, where the Mendesian goat was made god. The cats may have accompanied the goats, as in the Egyptian Hall in the British Museum. There is a grand row of black cat gods or gods of the order of Felis, all right, black cats, seated in the colossal state. The fishes must have swam to Carthage, Phoenicia, and the islands of the Mediterranean Sea. Phoenicia was over here, like the Phoenicians coming out of here. Whether they established, when they say they, Phoenicia's not a nation, guys. That's a seafaring peoples. So this whole concept of Phoenicia being one people is wrong. Carthage might have been here. Where the Phoenicians came out of might have been here. Most likely was they come out of Canaan, right? Canaan was here. Judging from the pictures, which the ancients have given of this maritime dispersion, there must have been many different modes adopted for the passage of the Atlantic. As to the gods that took tickets by the flying mares, they must have got across in first-class style. Some must have done it by express. They caught a Stygian bird and mounted on his back, as Ulysses says, ingloriously. They speedily came to dry land. As to the boys and girls, it was fine fun. Their divine fathers had bought them each a penny trumpet, and they are blown away lustily. One lady, painfully short of traveling rugs, had caught a dolphin and standing erect on its head, she made a breezy passage. The young ladies seemed to have had the best of it. The jolly old jactars were fishes. Tails accommodated them in their arms, so that they got across without even wetting their feet. On the whole, it must have been a sight. The case is put very differently by Plato, divested by the simplicity of storytelling and free from the concealment of mysticism and fancy. His account of the occurrence takes form of a great historical event. He makes the kings of the Atlantic Isle bring great warlike hosts from beyond the Pillars of Hercules. It is pretty plain that no flying mares nor dolphins could have brought that class of people across the turbulent Atlantic. Instead of a hasty and disgraceful flight in fear of typhoon, those great warlike hosts are made to conquer all the western parts of Europe and Africa. A warlike invasion of that magnitude must have been the downfall of kingdoms and the production of new and mighty states. It must have revolutionized the world, all right? Americans, Atlanteans, ancient Americans coming out of America, revolutionized the world. In any case, the flight of the gods from the shores of Quiché and Yucatan must have led to the evacuation of the cities which compose those states. Perhaps it may have left them in the pitiful condition in which they were found on the discovery of the provinces in modern times. If it cannot be supposed that the flight of the gods had left the cities without inhabitants, it may be inferred that the remnant had in lapse of ages so degenerated as to suffer the long forsaken erections to fall into ultimate decay. It would be quite worthwhile to follow these scampering divinities in their flight from the palace of Atlas, were it not that it would take a volume instead of a chapter. All right, remember the palace of Atlas, he's saying, was in Utatlan, the capital of the Quiché. Yet the story of this great historical event would be incomplete without at least following Atlas himself and the father of the gods, whose speech was so unhappily cut short on the assembling of the kings of the Atlantic Isle. The myth of Atlas has been already transcribed at page 213. There can be no doubt about the spot in the old continent to which this distinguished character migrated on his removal from the island which bore his name, from America. The myth expressly says that he was turned into a mountain at the western part of Africa. If so, he must have gone from Central America, again, from Central America into the country now called Morocco. Again, into Africa, not out of Africa. I hope this is clear to you guys. To suppose that the original home of Atlas was in Africa, it must be concluded that astronomy had its rise in Morocco. But Morocco puts forth no claim for astronomical discovery, and one would look to almost any country upon earth rather than to Morocco for gods. Besides, how could Atlas have given name to the Atlantic Isle if he resided originally in Africa? All right, make it make sense. That's a great question nobody ever asked. A lot of Pan-Africans, oh no, you're wrong, Kurimeo. Atlantis was there in North Africa and Mauritania. That's a little spot. Remember, Plato said Atlantis was bigger than Asia and Libya put together. That's bigger than Europe, Asia, and North Africa. It's bigger than that place. It's not just one little spot in Mauritania. You don't really understand what you're reading, and you're being biased when you're saying that. Nothing can be plainer than that Atlas, and in him, the Aslan race of Central America, the inventors of astronomy. Who? People in Central America, inventors of astronomy. So what you mean they came from Asia? Why didn't they invent that in Asia then, before they went to the Americas? You see how that doesn't make sense, what he be trying to add here sometimes? So he's saying Atlas, in him, the Aslan race of Central America, the inventors of astronomy, must have migrated across the Atlantic Ocean and settled in Mauritania. They came from America. That's just a colony there in Mauritania. That's just a colony of Atlantis. The Atlantides, or daughters of Atlas, must have been among the flying gods, as it is said that they married some of the gods and most illustrious heroes, and their children were founders of many nations and cities. The Atlantides are said to have become the Pleiades, all right? The Atlantides are said to have become the Pleiades, stars that form a part of the constellation of Taurus the Bull, a constellation that delineates Assyria in the Ptolemaic zodiac. Closely allied to the Atlantides were the Hesperides, Hispaniola, Hesperides, who also must have been a part of the population of the evacuated cities. All right, the Atlantides and the Hesperides, all these places, these peoples were in the Americas, okay? Their myth explains their migration. Hesperides, 3 celebrated nymphs, daughter of Hesperus, Apollodorus mentions for Aegle, Erythia, Vesta, and Aretusa, and Diodorus confounds them with the Atlantides and supposes that they were the same number. They were appointed to guard the golden apples, which Juno gave to Jupiter on the day of their nuptials, and the place of their residence, placed beyond the ocean by Hesiod, is universally believed to be near Mount Atlas in Africa, according to Apollodorus. This celebrated place or garden, abounding with fruits of the most delicious kind, was carefully guarded by a dreadful dragon, which never slept, a dragon. The double localization of the Hesperides seems to be justified. Being like Atlas, children of Japetus, they must have been a portion of the Zapotec race of Central America, okay? Remember, like, that's why you guys, if you new, make sure to catch the previous parts of this series so you can catch the whole book, the whole explanation he had, all right? But the name of the Hesperi is geographical on the west coast of Africa, where it is placed in the classical maps. When this curious myth comes to be studied, it will be found that the golden apples are the produce of the golden sands of Africa, so that the Hesperides must have crossed the Atlantic Ocean to the Gold Coast of Africa. You know, they call that the Gold Coast when he's talking about North Africa, right? Because I thought the Gold Coast was down there in Guinea and all that, right? But Dodge the hijack, the real Gold Coast is in the Gulf of Mexico when we're talking about the top of South America, all of Central America, Mexico, even parts of the Southeast. There's so much gold here, guys. You know what the Spanish and all these people found? So much gold, gold and gold and gold. You guys saw my travel to the Gold Museum here in Costa Rica. That's just one little one. We had so much gold here, the real Gold Coast and pearls, real Pearl Coast. By far the most important personage concerned in the evacuation of the now ruined cities of Central America is Jupiter himself. Jupiter, Zeus. Zeus is Jupiter. Zeus is a son of Kronos. Kronos is Saturn. Remember who Kronos is? Kronos to the Phoenicians was Israel, Jacob. So didn't Jacob have a son named Zeus? Zeus is related to Jupiter. Jupiter, that is Judah. So where are they finding this deity? This distinguished god has been traced to the southern mound cities of North America, the mound cities of North America, according both to the native traditions and the statement of Plato. There must have been a general gathering of the gods in Quiche and Yucatan, and Jupiter himself was among them. He seems to have led the great warlike host to Europe. The story of his own passage to Europe is told in the myth of the swimming bull. The following is the tale. All right, I'm going to read that, right? But in case anybody's lost to what I'm saying, we just did a video the other day, right? Kronos, we showed the sources according to Philo, the Biblos, and Sanction, the philosopher, a Phoenician philosopher. Again, Kronos was the same as Israel, and Kronos had a son named Jehud or Jehuda. Okay, catch up. So we're going to go into the story of his passage. It says here Europa, daughter of Agenor, king of Phoenicia, and Telephassa. Jupiter became enamored of her and assumed the shape of a bull. Europa caressed the animal and mounted him. The bull crossed the sea with Europa on his back and arrived safe in Crete. Here he assumed his original shape and declared his love. The nymph consented, though she had once made vows of perpetual celibacy, and she became mother of Minos, Sarpedon, and Rhadamanthus. After this distinguished armor with Jupiter, she married Asterius, king of Crete. At first sight, this tradition appears to be contradictory of the theory adduced by the tracing of the myths of the Atlantic Isle, as Europa is a daughter of a king of Phoenicia. But this seeming contradiction arises from the want of localization in the interpretation of mythic history, and the need of readjustment of the several clauses of the myth in accordance with that localization. This will be best shown by a short paraphrase of the myth. Europa, daughter of Agenor, who was afterwards king of Phoenicia and Telephassa, Jupiter became enamored of her. She became mother of Minos, who was judge of the infernal regions of South America, and Sarpedon and Rhadamanthus in other parts of those regions. A judge, huh? Aren't the Danites judges? Jupiter assumed the shape of a bull. Europa caressed the animal and mounted him. The bull crossed the sea with Europa on his back and arrived safe in Crete. To understand the transformation to a bull, it is necessary to have recourse to poetical astronomy and the sidereal heraldry of ancient nations. In the zodiacs, there are three bulls. The first is the bull of Eastern Asia, standing for China and Japan. This bull rips up the egg of the world. See page 85. Remember, we got a whole chapter. The egg of the world was here in America. It was referred to as the egg of the world. The second is Taurus Major, which gives portraiture to Assyria. And the third is Taurus Minor, which delineates Spain. As Spain is in Europe, of course, this is the bull of Europe. Jupiter assumes the shape of a bull by crossing the Atlantic Ocean and landing in Spain, situated at the gate of the gods. There, Europa, as the first or the most important arrival of the Phoenix family, gives name to Europe. All right? The Phoenix family, Enoch, Phoenix, huh? This transformation into the bull of Europe is comprised in what has been called in this work the master myth of antiquity. It is entitled to that character, partly from the extreme cleverness of the couplet, partly from the deep mystery involved in the transformation, and chiefly from the vastness of the histories lying hidden in the transformation. And then it says here, Taurus genuit draconem et taurum draco. The bull begat the dragon, and the dragon the bull. The present transformation is the complete complement of the couplet. When the bull of Asia crossed the Pacific Ocean and gave population and influence to the Atlantic Isle, from where though? See how he keeps trying to say, even though he's saying everything started here, everything original here, all the location of these deities are here, talking about ancient people, right? Antediluvians. Yet he's trying to say they must have come from Asia before that. Starts to hijack, big time. He transformed himself into a dragon. So when he came to America, he became a dragon, huh? But I thought that was an Asian cultural thing, huh? Ha! When the dragon race left the eastern shores of the oceanic hemisphere and landed in Hispania, the land of bulls and bullfights, it was transformed into a bull. So it was a dragon first, huh? And he became a dragon where in America? Come on now. The flight of the gods into the old continent so-called old, that's the new continent, constitutes one of the grandest features in human history. The flight of the gods, the gods, real people, the gods, that's what they call the ancient Americans. The vast temples and pyramids of Mexico and Peru, the 1,500 mounds scattered over the area of the United States. There's way more than 1,500, guys. And the evacuated cities of Tula, Quiche, and Yucatan stand as imperishable attestations of the power and civilizing influences of races which mingling their blood with the physical strength and ingenuity of a clever people created a new world, forsaking their oceanic domicile or impelled by war and the lust of gold, they land upon regions which from the absence of aboriginal traditions must have been absorbed in somnolence and inactivity, giving birth to that revival of national life, science, and religion which characterize the modern world. All right, we're just talking about ancient Americans bringing out civilization. That's what I've been trying to tell you guys from the beginning. Civilization started here. We're talking about people settling down, creating architecture, science, religion, all that. That started here, guys, and they brought corn with them and all this knowledge out into the rest of the world. That which characterizes our modern world. It started in America, guys. In America, the true old worlds.